pretty all Canadian reptile girl. I'm Annaliese, and just like this guy, I play dead when I'm frightened. This is Higgins, one of my two adorable Plains Hognose snakes. Arguably the cutest snake species in the world. But as cute as they are also fascinating and often misunderstood snakes. Let's talk hognose snakes. There are many different types of snakes with the hognose moniker. There has been some recent shuffling of names and species classifications with the North American hognose snakes. The Plains, for example, used to be called, and still is by many, the Western hognose snake, which had two subspecies, but it seems that one's been elevated to its own species and the other subsumed into the main species. Though, that's not always the case depending on who you're asking. As of right now, there are 4 species of hognoses in North America. The Mexican hognose, that used to be a subspecies of the Plains, and the Southern hognose, which are pretty uncommon and have a small range, so you're not likely to find them. There's also the Eastern hognose snakes, and then the Plains hognose, which is this guy, like I said. Most of the hognoses in captivity are Plains. You will sometimes come across an Eastern hognose as a pet. Well, not here in Ontario, because as a native protected species under Ontario's Endangered Species Act, they are illegal to keep here. But as a whole, the Easterns don't usually make great pets. Now, I'm certain that there are people out there with gentle, laid-back Easterns, but generally speaking, they tend to be a lot more defensive than Plains hognose snakes. They are pickier eaters, which can be saying something. This guy only ate 3 times in the 2 years before I got him. More inclined to give a threat display or bluff strike, or go full over the top drama mama and just die in your hands. More on both of these in a minute. Not every snake called a hognose snake is related to the other hognoses. The North American ones are. They are all in the Heterodon genus. Outside of North America, you've got 5 species of Lystrophis, South American tricolored hognose snake, who imitate venomous coral snakes with a red, black, and white ring pattern. Madagascar has 3 species of Leoheterodon. It'll be here. Decide how you want to pronounce it. They're Madagascar hognose snake. You might think that based on appearance and a similar sounding generic name to the North American hognose snakes, Heterodon and Leoheterodon, or the other way I said it, again, it'll be here. Decide what you want. That they would be related. But no, not even close. Madagascar hognose snakes are not even colubrids. They're in the family Pseudoxyrophiniae, and are more closely related to elapids like cobras than they are to Maggie here. This is my other Plains hognose snake, Maggie, my albino female. They are venomous, just like Maggie and Higgins, and also just like Higgins and Maggie, the venom is mild and they are generally considered pretty harmless. I'll get to that in a minute too. As cool as those other hognose snakes are, that's not what this video is all about. Today we are sticking with Plains hognose because, well, that's what I have, and is also what you are most likely going to find in your local reptile shop. Let's start with where you can find them in the wild. Their range starts in the Canadian prairies and extends south through the middle of the US all the way down to northern Mexico. They prefer a lot of sandy or gravelly areas with some loose soil to burrow through, grasslands on sandy soil, river floodplains, scrubby forests, and even farmland. In the wild, they eat small rodents and amphibians, with toads being a favorite. Despite what you might have heard out there in the reptile verse, they don't pop puffed up toads with their rear fangs. I've actually got a couple of videos where I talk all about that. While not for popping toads, their rear fangs do serve some important functions: prey manipulation and delivering that venom I mentioned earlier. The venom works best on amphibians and other small prey and is generally considered pretty harmless to humans. But a big enough dose or a bad reaction can still pose a risk. It's important that we give an animal like this that has venom, however mild, the respect it deserves. While very unlikely, it is possible to have a serious reaction to a bite from one of these guys. Google hognose snake bite, and you'll see some pretty scary looking reactions. pets. I don't want to frighten anyone off of these guys as a pet. They make wonderful pets, and with just a tiny bit of respect and caution, they are perfectly safe to keep. A rash of people intentionally letting themselves get chewed on by a venomous snake for internet clout on TikTok mostly warrants some words of caution, and a reminder that venom of any kind deserves our respect. The good news is that envenomation is not hard to avoid at all. Getting a defensive bite from a Plains Hognose is highly unlikely. They just don't really do that. They puff up and they flatten and they hiss and they coil up and will even strike, but they forget that to bite something, you need to actually open your mouth. They seem far more content to just jab you with their pointy snoot, which actually might be more effective than a bite. Safer too. They're not gonna lose a tooth or get snagged on your skin or clothes. Maybe you're smarter than we thought. If you are receiving a bite from a hognose, it is far, far more likely that it is a food response. They miss a strike at their intended meal or decide that they are feeling really ambitious and just try to sample you. Maggie is notorious for this. She's always trying to nibble on us, especially if she's out in her enclosure and we open it up to say hi. She'll just come at us with her mouth open, slowly following. Anyways. This is really the only chance of envenomation, as they have to basically be trying to eat you so that the fangs way at the back can chew on you for a few moments to get the venom into your skin. Their fangs... You good there? Okay, you're just gonna go over... Okay then. Their fangs don't work like a rattlesnake or vipers, which actually injects venom. Hognose venom needs to seep in. It needs to be worked into the wound. So, as long as you don't let them latch on and continually chew on you, you know, just give the venomous snake the respect it deserves, you should be fine. While we are talking about them being venomous, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that they are also, in the wild, often poisonous. For most snake people, saying a snake is poisonous instead of venomous is a bit triggering. I don't know why we get all worked up on that. Don't get me wrong, it irks me too, to no end. But really, what's the big deal? We know what they mean, it really has no effect on our lives. I get asked questions that are way worse than that about snakes all the time. So why do I get this wave of irritation when this happens?
I don't know, but it's a bloody good question.
This can be a valid statement or question when it relates to North American hognose snakes. Like I mentioned earlier, hognoses eat a lot of toads in the wild, and as you may know, toads are poisonous. Making a predator sick is a good deterrent for said predator to not want to eat another one. Doesn't work out so well for the toad who got it originally, but it's for the greater good. The greater good.
The greater good. How can this be for the greater good? The greater good. How can this be for the greater good? The greater good. Shut it!
Okay then. For hognose snakes to be able to eat toads and not get poisoned, they use a process called dietary sequestration. This means that they take the poison from the toads and will distribute it and store it throughout their own bodies, mostly in the liver, but throughout their muscles and tissue as well, making themselves poisonous to eat. Garter snakes, who often feed on toads and even more toxic newts, can do this as well. So they too are venomous and poisonous. Garter snake venom is even milder than hognoses and has virtually no effect on humans, so don't worry. They too are safe. Now, in captivity, we are usually not feeding these guys toads. So, if you were so inclined, it would be perfectly safe to eat your hognose snake. But then you'd be missing this adorable derpy little face looking at you, and you wouldn't want that, eh? During the spring and fall, they will stay in the prairies and grasslands and will eat rodents or toads that they find in the soil as they explore rodent dens or burrow through the soil using their little shovel nose. That's so dumb looking. This is why they are widely regarded as ground-dwelling or even semi-fossorial. They do spend a lot of time burrowing, but if you look at hognose snake subreddits, or even just snake subreddits, you will see all sorts of posts of folks marveling at how their hognoses are climbing or spending time up high. Usually, the posts are posted with a wink and a smirk, like, yeah, sure, hognoses don't climb. But there are some posts where people are legitimately concerned about this behavior. They were told hognoses don't climb, and to see them doing it is alarming to them. Is there something wrong with my hognose? He's always climbing. Or is he stressed out? Does she hate her enclosure? What's wrong? I thought they didn't climb. Pretty much all snakes climb. It's fine. Even actual fossorial snakes like sand boas will explore upwards on occasion if they have the choice to. So give them the choice and you'll see some fun behavior. Anyway, the notion that hognoses are primarily ground-dwelling has been challenged by some recent studies done by Jeff Leclerc. What he and his team found was that they stay close to or under the ground in the spring and early summer. Later in the year, at the hottest parts of summer, they will move into more wetland areas and ponds and lakes, if they are accessible, of course, to seek refuge from the heat, as opposed to estivating, as was long previously thought. They're looking for bodies of water with tall grass or cattails around the water's edge, and lots of amphibians. What they do is they climb the reeds and the grass and the branches at the water's edge and suspend themselves just above the water. They wait for a frog or other amphibian to come along, and then they strike from above like some kind of thick shovel-faced arboreal viper. The climbing behavior so many of us see from our pet hognose snakes is not just because they are curious and exploring new areas, but is actually an example of an important behavior many of them would use in the wild. How cool is that? While they can be great hunters, they can also be great actors. I mentioned earlier that the Easterns really excel at this, but the Plains Hognoses are not shy about hamming it up. Eh? Ham? Hognose? Eh? No? Okay. When threatened, ham noses. Okay, I just had to try again, I'm sorry. Hognoses will do their darndest to make sure that you think that they are dangerous. Their pattern and color is similar to species of rattlesnakes within their range. That's called Batesian mimicry, by the way. A harmless species imitating a dangerous one. They'll rear up in a strike pose and coil up and run the coils through each other to kind of make a rattling sound, and they will flare out their necks and flatten their head and loudly hiss. They may bluff strike too, but as I mentioned earlier, they very rarely bite, just kind of try and stab you with their nose. If all of this isn't enough to scare you off, they die and hope that you buy their totally real, but 100% fake death. They flip onto their backs, exposing their belly, and they musk and poop everywhere, and will open their mouth and stick out their tongue. They're so committed to their bit, they're committed to their craft, that even if you flip them onto their stomachs again, they will roll over. They are unrevivable, and so very dead.
But I thought you were dead!
While it is kind of funny looking, this is the snake's last line of defense. They literally believe they are going to die, and this is the last-ditch effort to make you think that they are too rotten to be eaten, and that you should, as the predator, just walk away. If a predator decides to eat the hognose anyways, as long as they have eaten enough toads, it's likely to make them sick, and hopefully think twice about eating the next dead hognose snake they come across. Take one for the team, eh? Good for you. In any case, if you observe this behavior in your snake, however funny or ridiculous it may seem, you should know that it means that they are immensely stressed. It's not a behavior you should actively be trying to elicit, you know? Hognoses are so cool. They have an awesome variety of colors and patterns, and they are absolutely adorable. They're not the brightest snake species I've ever met, but that's okay. They make up for it with plenty of personality and sass. I hope you love hognose snakes as much as I do. I also hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love it if you hit that like button, as it can really help me out. Thank you so much to all of my wonderful patrons for shoveling all sorts of support my way. These guys get early access to my videos, updates on my animals, and even see new additions before anyone else, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/allcanadianreptilegirl to see what is available. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, remember to nurture all nature. Bye! There are many different types of snakes with the hognose moniker. There have been some recent shuffling of stuff, you know, species, names, and yeah.
I don't know what that was. That was not
Me
right.
either. Oh, he's so cute.
Bath time. You're so cute.
She's such a photogenic cat, too.
She is.
She's beautiful. Oscar's a cat who's prettier in photos than he is in real life. Like, he's a pretty cat, don't get me wrong. But he looks graceful in photos, whereas in real life, he's less graceful. But in photos, he looks like a really graceful, pretty cat. Beckett. Beckett's the same no matter what. To Maggie here, who's another Plains snake, hognose. She's a, wow.
Are you okay?
No, I don't know what's happening today. Someone said help. All right, let's try this again.